In Wisconsin today, Jeffrey Dahmer died. He was murdered in the prison where he was sent in 1991 for murdering 17 men and boys. In 1991, the revelation that he had eaten or otherwise defiled some of his victims revolted the nation.
Jeffrey Dahmer, the monster, next door. What you're about to hear will make you question everyone you think you know. July 22nd, 1991, a man runs barefoot through Milwaukee streets, handcuffs dangling from one wrist, screaming for help. When police follow him back to apartment 213, they open a refrigerator and find a human head staring back at them. But here's what will haunt you. The neighbors heard nothing. The police had been there before. And the man inside? He worked at a chocolate factory. His name was Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer. And for 13 years, he hid in plain sight. Charming, polite, and utterly monstrous. This isn't just a story about a serial killer. It's a story about how evil learned to smile. Before we dive in, here's a question that will stay with you. If Dahmer's neighbors called police multiple times about the smell, screaming, and strange behavior, why did no one stop him? That answer will chill you to the bone. But first, we need to go back to where it all began. Welcome to Evil Crime Archives, where power, danger, and deception collide. From the world's most ruthless criminals to the untold stories of the underworld, we uncover the secrets others fear to tell. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to get more of those stories. Chapter 1. A Quiet Boy from Ohio. Jeffrey Dahmer was born on May 21st, 1960, in the small town of Bath, Ohio. He was the first child of Lionel and Joyce Dahmer, a couple whose home was filled with tension rather than warmth. Lionel, a chemist by profession, was intelligent but emotionally distant. Joyce, his mother, struggled with anxiety and mental health issues, often leaving young Jeffrey caught between arguments and long stretches of silence. From an early age, Jeffrey stood out. Neighbors described him as polite yet oddly detached, a boy who seemed to drift through life, rarely showing emotion or interest in others. But there was one thing that did capture his attention: animals. While most children played with pets, Jeffrey collected dead creatures from the roadside and dissected them in the family's backyard shed. His father, mistaking this for scientific curiosity, even helped him learn about bones and preservation, unaware that this fascination was slowly warping into something far darker. By high school, Jeffrey had become increasingly isolated. He began drinking heavily, sneaking alcohol into class to dull his growing emptiness. His grades fell, and his social interactions became strange, even unsettling. Classmates would later recall his bizarre behavior, jokingly calling it doing a Dahmer. But there was one memory none of them could forget, something so disturbing that decades later, they still won't talk about it on camera. Behind that odd humor and quiet demeanor, a dangerous obsession was taking root. One centered around control, death, and the eerie peace of lifeless bodies. And in June 1978, that obsession would claim its first victim. Chapter 2. The First Murder. June 1978. Jeffrey Dahmer was 18 years old. His parents' bitter divorce had left him completely alone in the family home. For the first time, there were no rules, no supervision, just silence and isolation. One afternoon, while driving, Jeffrey spotted a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks, who was heading to a rock concert.
The first killing was not planned. I was coming back from the shopping mall back in '78. I had had fantasies about picking up a hitchhiker and taking him back to the house and having complete control and dominance.
Jeffrey, craving company, offered him a ride and invited him home for a few beers. The two spent hours drinking, talking about music and lifting weights. For a brief moment, Jeffrey felt a sense of connection, something rare for him. But when Stephen said he needed to leave, something inside Jeffrey snapped. Terrified of being abandoned again, he panicked. Grabbing a dumbbell, he struck Stephen from behind and then strangled him with the bar. Stephen Hicks was 18 years old. He was hitchhiking to a concert. He trusted a stranger who offered him a beer. And he never made it home. That night marked the beginning of Jeffrey Dahmer's descent into darkness, his first taste of control, and the first step on a path from which he would never return. But here's what makes it even more terrifying. Though he wouldn't kill again for nearly a decade. Chapter 3. The Silent Years. After high school, Jeffrey Dahmer's life unraveled. He enrolled in college but quickly dropped out, unable to focus or fit in. Desperate for direction, he joined the army, where discipline offered a temporary structure, until his drinking spiraled out of control. By 1981, he was discharged and left to drift aimlessly through life. For years, Dahmer bounced between odd jobs, rundown apartments, and cheap motels. His alcohol addiction worsened, clouding his mind and deepening his isolation. Police encounters became frequent. Arrests for indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, and eventually, the sexual assault of a minor. Yet each time, he slipped through the system, treated as a troubled young man rather than a growing threat. By 1987, Dahmer had settled in Milwaukee and found work at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory. His co-workers saw him as quiet and polite. But after hours, he returned to his empty apartment, drowning himself in alcohol and disturbing fantasies. He longed for connection, yet his desires were twisted. What he wanted wasn't love, it was control. He dreamed of having a companion who could never reject him, never walk away. In those silent, lonely years, the monster inside Jeffrey Dahmer was growing stronger, waiting for the moment to resurface. Chapter 4. The Killing Begins. November 20th, 1987. Jeffrey Dahmer met 25-year-old Stephen Tuomi at a bar in Milwaukee. They spent the night drinking and eventually checked into a room at the Ambassador Hotel. Dahmer drank until he blacked out, and when he woke up the next morning, Stephen was dead, beaten beyond recognition. Dahmer claimed he couldn't remember doing it, but deep down, he knew he had crossed the line again. Over the next several days, Dahmer methodically dismembered the body, dissolving parts in acid and disposing of others in the trash. The only thing he kept was the skull, which he carefully cleaned and bleached, turning it into a twisted trophy. That skull marked the beginning of his obsession, a symbol of control and possession. From then on, his killings escalated. He began luring young men from gay bars and bus stops, promising money, companionship, or photographs. Each encounter ended the same, with his victims drugged, strangled, and dissected. Chapter 5. The Apartment of Horrors. By 1990, Jeffrey Dahmer had moved into apartment 213 at the Oxford Apartments in Milwaukee, a modest one-bedroom unit that would soon become one of the most infamous crime scenes in American history. To his neighbors, Dahmer seemed ordinary. He was quiet, polite, and always paid his rent on time. No one suspected that behind his door lay a world of unspeakable horror. When police finally entered the apartment in 1991, what they discovered shocked even the most seasoned detectives. One officer opened the refrigerator and immediately vomited. Inside the refrigerator sat a human head, eyes still open. In the freezer, 2 human hearts and bags of flesh, neatly labeled. Several bleached skulls were neatly arranged on shelves, like trophies on display. Large vats of acid bubbled with dissolving remains, and in the corner stood a 57-gallon blue barrel. It was filled with decomposing body parts, torsos, limbs, hands still reaching upward as if trying to escape. The smell had been unbearable for months, but Dahmer always had an explanation. Spoiled meat, a broken refrigerator, or dead tropical fish. Most neighbors simply accepted his excuses and moved on. But one neighbor didn't. She called police 6 times. 6 times they came to his door, and 6 times they left. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer murdered 17 young men and boys.
Jeffrey Dahmer died. He was murdered in the prison where he was sent in 1991 for murdering 17 men and boys.
Chapter 6. Obsession and Experimentation. Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes weren't driven by rage, revenge, or the thrill of killing. They were fueled by a dark and obsessive desire for control. What Dahmer wanted was impossible. Companions who would never leave him, bodies he could command completely. To achieve this, he began experimenting on his victims. After drugging them, Dahmer drilled holes into their skulls and injected acid, boiling water, or other chemicals directly into their brains. He called these twisted attempts his zombie experiments. His goal was to create living but submissive bodies, people who were alive but no longer truly human. None of his experiments succeeded. Every victim died in unbearable pain, yet Dahmer continued, convinced he could perfect his horrifying method. With each failure, his obsession deepened. In a desperate attempt to feel closer to his victims, Dahmer began consuming parts of their flesh, believing that by eating them, he could keep them with him forever. Chapter 7. The Ones Who Got Away. Jeffrey Dahmer narrowly escaped capture multiple times, often through sheer manipulation and luck. His calm, polite demeanor convinced people he was harmless, even when the truth was inches away. In May 1991, one of his victims, 14-year-old Konarak Synthasamphone, managed to escape from Dahmer's apartment. He was naked, bleeding, and disoriented, wandering the streets of Milwaukee in terror. Concerned neighbors immediately called 911.
Okay, hi, I'm on 25th and State, and this is young man. He is butt naked. He has been beaten up. He is very bruised up. He can't stand. He's study fall out. He is butt naked. He has no clothes on. He was really hurt. And I ain't got no cord on him. I just seen him, and he needs some help.
Where is he at?
On 25th and State, the corner of 25th and State.
Desperate to help the boy, the police arrived within minutes. Chapter 8. The Night It All Ended. July 22, 1991, Jeffrey Dahmer invited 32-year-old Tracy Edwards to his apartment, promising money in exchange for photos. But as soon as Tracy entered, he sensed something was wrong.
The man who led police to Jeffrey Dahmer was back in court this past week. 52-year-old Tracy Edwards faces charges.
The apartment reeked of decay. A large blue barrel sat in the corner, and on the nightstand were Polaroids showing dismembered bodies. When Dahmer tried to handcuff him, Tracy fought back with everything he had and managed to escape. Terrified and half-naked, he ran into the street, flagging down police for help. Chapter 9. The Confession. At the police station, Jeffrey Dahmer didn't fight or deny anything. Instead, he sat calmly and confessed, describing in chilling detail how he had murdered, dismembered, and even eaten parts of 17 victims. There was no anger, no remorse, only a strange sense of relief, as if he had finally unburdened himself. In 1992, Dahmer pleaded guilty but claimed insanity. The jury rejected it. He was declared legally sane and sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, more than 900 years in prison. Chapter 10. Inside Prison Walls. In prison, Dahmer was quiet, obedient, and oddly content. He read the Bible, found religion, and even got baptized. But not everyone believed his transformation. In 1994, a fellow inmate named Christopher Scarver took justice into his own hands. During work duty, Scarver beat Dahmer to death with a metal bar.
There are shocking new details about the murder of America's most hated serial killer and how he may have seen his own death coming.
Chapter 11. The Monster Next Door. For many, Dahmer's story wasn't just about murder. It was about how evil can hide behind normality. He looked like a shy man with glasses, worked at a chocolate factory, and said, "Yes, sir," and "Thank you." But behind his door, he was performing horrors the world could barely comprehend. Now, here's the question that should keep you up at night. How many people interacted with Jeffrey Dahmer and never suspected a thing? Chapter 12. The Legacy of Fear. Even decades later, Dahmer's name dominates documentaries, films, and true crime podcasts. Netflix's Monster. The Jeffrey Dahmer story reignited global fascination, but also controversy. For some, it was a chilling insight into the psychology of evil. Chapter 13. Understanding the Darkness. Criminologists have studied Dahmer for decades. They call him an anomaly. A man who wasn't driven by rage or greed, but by an inner compulsion to possess and preserve. He didn't want victims who screamed or fought. Chapter 14. The Haunting Echo. Today, Apartment 213 no longer exists. The entire Oxford apartment building was demolished in 1992, erased from Milwaukee's skyline. But the ghost of Dahmer's crimes lingers. In books, documentaries, and the nightmares of those who remember, the smell, the screams, the headlines. He was a man, polite, lonely, broken, who turned his darkness into destruction. And that, perhaps, is what makes Jeffrey Dahmer so terrifying. Because monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they live quietly next door. This was the story of Jeffrey Dahmer, the monster next door. If this story disturbed you, good, it should. Because the moment we stop being disturbed is the moment we stop paying attention. If you see something, say something. Subscribe for more true crime stories that explore the chilling truth behind humanity.